I made these backgrounds in the last video where we were comparing how different papers work with one background layer. We are going to continue the video and add additional layers to the same papers, and I do start out with making a very basic mistake. I should have covered the plate with the blue paint and then used the stencil. I was just going with the flow. This would have worked with most stencils, but since the stencil is so intricate and I was not paying attention, the paint seeped under the stencil. This would have been a lovely print had I just picked the negative print directly from the stencil. But I still decide to go ahead and pick it on hanji paper, the one with fibers. I'm just gonna call it fiber hanji from now to make it easier to refer to. I know it wasn't what we were going for, but it still looks interesting. And we do end up with a lot of pretty prints in this session. Just wait and find out. This is going to be one of the longer videos and we end up with around 11 prints. Some with 2 layers and some with several layers. You must let me know which one is your favorite in the comments once you reach the end of the video. The color we are now using for a second layer is Maple's Yellow Red. I opt for the same stencil, but this time I had the presence of mind to add the paint layer first. We are using our thinnest hanji paper for this. Yep. My favorite one. Since we're using a stencil, I had to use my hands to press on the paper in open spots, and I did end up getting some paint on my hands. If we get a good print, it is worth it. And oh my god, I am loving it. What a beautiful combination. This is what our first print was supposed to look like. See what a difference it made to put the paint on first. Now let's remove the stencil and pick up the ghost print. This time we're using the medium hanji paper. I'm using the same naming convention I used for these papers in the earlier video for those of you watching in continuation. Oh wow, this has come up beautifully and we even picked up some of the leftover blue paint from the first print. That is adding a lovely contrast. I'm liking the subtle look for now, so I decided to use Prussian Rose. It is such a lovely shade of pink. I only spread the paint in the center area as the stencil is not big enough to cover the entire plate, so I'm just putting paint where the stencil is going to be. This is a somewhat intricate stencil, so I pull out the Chinese rice paper to pick the negative print. This paper is very thin and hence easier for it to be pressed into the tiny spaces and make contact with the paint. I don't show it the whole process, but I do use my hands to push down on the paper into each of these open areas in the stencil. Absolutely gorgeous. The light and dark floral pattern looks fab. And the ghost print looks equally good, but how is it going to look on a thicker hanji paper? This one has a rough fibrous feel and did not pick our background layer too well in our earlier video. Oh no, as expected it did the same with our second layer. Only some of the paint got picked up. It is not what we wanted, but it is still a background that can be used. Let's use a layer of wet paint to pick up the remnants of the ghost print. I use one of the thin hanji papers for this. If you are close enough, you can see the ghost print, but it is subtle enough to look like a self print. You can see it much better once I put a white paper under it. I think it looks quite pretty. We are bringing back the turquoise blue for the next layer. Next, I'm using the Japanese rice paper to pick it up. If you pick a corner of the paper and realize the paint is not being picked, quickly put it down and press on it. Give the paint a bit more time to get absorbed in the paper. If the paint is still wet, it will get picked up. Well, that pattern is nothing to talk about. The actual pattern is going to be the ghost print. See how lovely that pattern looks? For this one, I'm switching to the handcrafted hanji. I had great expectations of this one, but do you see what happened? The outlines of our ghost print dried out while the middle part of the pattern was wet and that got picked up. So now we have half the paint on our paper and half still on the gel plate, and what is left on the gel plate looks pretty amazing. Since the paint has dried, it will require a layer of wet paint to bind with it and pull it up. Time to bring in some Naples Yellow Deep to cover the plate. How this works is the ghost print has to be dry, otherwise the layer of paint you put on top will mix with it and ruin the pattern. The layer that we are now putting, that is the yellow one, has to be wet when we put the paper on it. If it is dry, it won't get absorbed by the paper. But when we pick the paper, we must make sure that both layers have dried out. This means the wet paint has bonded with the dry paint of the shadow print and will pull it up too. I think I got all the dry-wet combo in that explanation. The paper we have used for this one is a thicker Japanese rice paper. Can I say I am just blown away with this print? I don't think I could have gotten this perfect in outline for a ghost print even if I tried. Can't replicate it even if I wanted to. I am loving it. I'm going to leave this one as is and not cover it with any additional layer. It is time for more contrast, so let's introduce titanium white into the mix. The stencil has so many small openings that I have to use a thin paper for this. Let's go with our Chinese rice paper. As always, remember I mostly never pick up these papers immediately. For the video, I cut out the waiting part. For me, that is normally anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes because of our weather. For you, the wait time will differ depending on the paint you're using and your weather. This includes both the temperature and the humidity. That is kind of pretty, but ooh, the ghost print is even more interesting. Let's pick it up first using the Freshnel rice paper. That is what its packaging said, so that is the name we're going to be using. Oh, never mind. The ghost print had already dried before I put this paper on. Let's just add a layer of wet paint to pick it up directly. Since this stencil always looks like a pool of water, I tend to gravitate towards using a shade of blue with it. And how right I was with that choice of color. It does look like a pool of water, and we did use the Freshnel rice paper for the pull. We have already gone to the lighter side for the contrast, so why not a darker option? Payne's Grey it is. Let's use our grid stencil with it. Let's add it to our Chinese rice paper with a floral print. And of course the ghost print from the grid. Let's hope our handcrafted Hanji can pick this one up. We were unable to the last time as the ghost print had already dried. Well, that is interesting. Most of it has gotten picked up, but some of the outlines were still left on the plate. This would make for a fun print for sure. We will go with Ezo Yellow Deep to pick this gorgeous surprise of a ghost print. I am so excited for this one. Instead of picking it directly, I decided to use a stencil and pick up the negative print using a handcrafted Hanji. It already had some of the blue ghost print from the same stencil, so I think this will complement it well. Check out how pretty that looks. It has definitely added to the print. But what about the ghost print? Shall we use the thin Hanji paper for this? Why not? And that was good instinct. Even if I say so myself, this came together perfectly. I still want to add another layer to the handcrafted Hanji, so I try placing a few stencils to see which I like better. Yeah, I'm going with this one. I'm using Van Dyke Brown for this layer. Let's place our chosen stencil on the plate. But first, we need to get our negative print out of the way. We are going to be using a medium Hanji paper as we have not added any more layers on this after the one right at the start. I'll keep this aside for later. I feel it needs another layer. And now for the star of the show, our ghost print. Wow, that has turned out stunning. The ghost print is a bit translucent so you can still see the layers under that. This is definitely making it to my list of top 3 prints from today. I really was on a roll today. Normally, I do around 5 prints in a session. I use cobalt blue and a gear stencil for the next print. I'm using the Chinese rice paper to pick up the negative print. This looks fantastic. I don't think I'm adding any more layers to this one either. I like it as is. Not every print needs 6 layers. Sometimes you need basic prints with 1 or 2 layers as well, especially if you're going to be using it for a collage. Shall we rest the ghost print on a thick fibrous Hanji again? Well, we got some of it. Maybe I have to wait a lot longer with this paper. I will try that next time, but for now we have managed to replicate the scenario where the outline of the ghost print is left and the middle part has gotten picked up. I figure the leftover ghost print needs a contrasting color like white. In retrospect, I should have picked up the whole print, but in the moment I decided to go with a stencil. I'm picking the positive print with a Chinese rice paper. This already has 3 layers on it, the background, then a floral layer, and a grid pattern. Now we have added 2 more layers in one go. If you were to show this to someone who has no idea about gel printing, they will be wondering to no end as to how to achieve something like this. For the ghost print, let's bring back our medium hanji. Ooh, I think I picked it up too quickly. Should have waited just a bit longer for the whole thing to come up. I'm really enjoying the gear stencil, so I decided to add a layer in green. This time we're using the thicker Japanese rice paper. For the ghost print, I'm using a fiber hanji paper. I love how these fibers are showing. Maybe next time I will experiment picking up for the textured side, where you can feel the fibers. Okay, that just got more mushy and blobby. That is the only way I can describe it. But I shall fix it, obviously by adding more gears in a dark contrasting color. Wow. I mean wow. From a sad blobby design to a pattern that looks stunning. Time to add the ghost print to our thicker Japanese rice paper. I'm not sure about this one. I feel I liked it better earlier. Although when you look at both designs together, they kind of work as they're opposites of each other. And we're finally done with our prints. Wow, that was a long session. We made a lot today, so here's a quick recap. First, our thin hanji. Then the Chinese rice paper with 2 layers. After that, the fiber hanji. Next, the medium hanji. Then the thick hanji. I did not try adding more layers after trying to unsuccessfully pick up 2 ghost prints on this one. Followed by the handcrafted hanji. Then the thicker Japanese rice paper. And oh, my favorite print, also on the thicker Japanese rice paper. A pool of water on the fresh snow Japanese rice paper. This one is also on the same rice paper. And finally, the Chinese rice paper. Wow, that was a lot of prints. Which ones are your favorite and what is your paper preference? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you have loads of inspiration to get started with your own prints. Don't forget to subscribe for fun future videos that are going to be coming up. Turn on all notifications so you don't miss out. See you in the next video.